Richie here with Saturday Football. These are the Saturday Week 1 college football, the 3:30 games, the midday games. Starting with the huge, one of the biggest games of the weekend, Alabama and Miami. Alabama, of course, 13-0, won the national championship last year. They were 23rd in scoring offense, 13th in scoring defense. They lost their quarterback. They lost quite a bit on offense, though. They do have a good receiver in John Mechie, 55 catches, 916 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Miami coming off an 8-3 year. They have 20 returning starters. They were 26th nationally in scoring offense. The biggest thing is their quarterback, De'Aaron King, did come back for another year. He got hurt in the Oklahoma State game, but he was great when he was on the field. He passed for 2,686 yards, 23 touchdowns, only 5 picks, ran for 530 yards and 4 touchdowns. Running back Cam Harris ran for 643 yards and 10 touchdowns. Wide receiver Mike Harley, 57 catches, 799 yards and 7 touchdowns. And wide receiver Charleston Rambo transferred in from Oklahoma. So they have a very powerful offense. They lost quite some decent sackers from their defense. This is a big game. Bama should be on roll for another national championship appearance. They are starting over at quarterback, so right out of the gate, this could give Miami a bit of an edge. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Possible Heisman moment here. I still think it won't be enough to beat Alabama, but I'm going to put Alabama on upset alert. A lot of people aren't going to see it, but I'll go with Bama, but Miami will keep it close. All right, Miami of Ohio and Cincinnati. Miami of Ohio only played 3 games from the MAC last year, 2-1. Brett Gabbert, 384 passing yards, 4 touchdowns in those. Wide receiver Jack Sorensen only in 3 games had 18 catches for 354 yards and 4 touchdowns. Cincinnati had a great year last year, 9-1. They only have 12 returning starters. They were 17th in scoring offense and 8th in scoring defense. They have one of the best quarterbacks maybe in the country in Desmond Ridder, 2,296 yards, 19 touchdowns to 6 picks, and ran for 592 yards and 12 touchdowns. Defensive end Mike J. Sanders had 7 sacks himself. I think Cincinnati should have a lot of trouble with Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio is a MAC contender. The one thing I will say is Cincinnati did lose their defensive coordinator. I think that's a bigger deal than people are going to see. They were able to slow down UCF the last couple of years and beat them. So, but I'm not sure that'll matter too much this game, though. I got Cincinnati beating Miami of Ohio. All right, Indiana and Iowa, big 10 game. Indiana 6-2, 17 returning starters. They were 19th in scoring defense last year. Michael Penix Jr., one of the better quarterbacks in the country if he can stay healthy for a full season. Even though he played part of last year, he'd still pass for 1,645 yards, 14 touchdowns and 4 picks. Wide receiver Ty Freifogel, 37 catches, 721 yards and 7 touchdowns. Iowa, always stout, always good defense and good running game. 6-2. They were 6th nationally in scoring defense. Spencer Petras was fine, 1569 passing, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks. Tyler Goodson, though, one of the better running backs in the nation. 762 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns in only those 8 games. He should fly past 1,000 yards there. This will be a really good game. Indiana and Iowa are very similar, very tough defenses. Indiana probably usually has a better offense, but they lost some receivers. They have a really good quarterback, but then Iowa's got the really good running back. I'm gonna go with Iowa overall here. Penix will keep Indiana close, and if Indiana wins, it'll be because of Penix at quarterback. But I think Iowa overall has the better team and should be able to come out with a close win here. All right, Marshall and Navy, decent game here. Marshall was 7-3 last year, 17 returning starters. They have a new head coach, Charles Huff. Quarterback Grant Wells did really well last year, 2,091 yards, 18 touchdowns, and only 9 picks. They have one of the better tight ends maybe the best tight end in the CUSA, and Xavier Gaines, 28 catches, 404 yards, and 4 touchdowns. They're actually the number 1 scoring defense in the country last year there. And facing a Navy team who runs the triple option, which means they're running back. They run the ball a lot, especially their quarterbacks will run. They were 3-7. They had 2 quarterbacks kind of go back and forth. Xavier Arline ran for 210. Tiger Gosselin passed for 333 and 3 touchdowns. I'm actually going to give this one Navy. Marshall, even though they have a really good good offense, a good quarterback. They're starting over at head coach. They got a new head coach. They have to travel to Annapolis to Navy. I think Navy, normally they're a bowl team. They had a down year last year. I think they bounced back and win that game. But again, another good game there. West Virginia, Maryland. West Virginia was 6-4 last year, 21st in scoring defense in the country, 4th in total defense. Jared Day, 2,587 yards, 14 touchdowns and 4 picks. He should fly with those numbers. Running back Letty Brown did run for 1,010 yards and 9 touchdowns in only those 10 games. Maryland, they went 2-3. Talia Tagovailoa, which is Tua's brother, passed for 1,011 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks, but they lost a lot in their running game and their receivers. I mean, their offense goes in and out, but they're terribly. Their coach is horrible. He can get all the talent there, but they're bad, and I think West Virginia should win this one. Maryland will somehow win games they shouldn't and then suck the rest of the year, but I think West Virginia wins this one. All right, Louisiana Tech and Mississippi State. Louisiana Tech was 5-5 last year. They have quarterback Luke Anthony, who played part of the year last year, got hurt later, but still had a really good year. 1,479 yards, 16 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. Linebacker Tyler Grubbs had 99 tackles for the defense. Mississippi State under Mike Leach, they ended up with getting to a bowl game and actually winning it. They have Southern Miss transfer Jack Abraham at quarterback there. And Will Rogers, he stepped in 1,976 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 picks. So either way, they should be fine. I personally think they should start Jack Abraham because the Southern Miss, they ran a similar offense that Mississippi State is running under Mike Leach. And I think he's a better quarterback. But either way, the ball should be in the air a lot of times all year long. Wide receiver Jaden Walley, 52 catches, 718 yards, 2 touchdowns. And cornerback Emmanuel Ford is one of the best in the country, second nationally with 5 interceptions. This has the potential to be a kind of a high-scoring game with Mississippi State and Louisiana Tech, but Louisiana Tech should be able to come out with the victory in the end. All right, Central Michigan and Missouri. Missouri, I'm going to put you on a bit of an upset alert. Central Michigan was 3-3. They had 20 returning starters. They have Washington transfer Jacob Sermon coming in to play quarterback. They were 41st in scoring offense last year. Their coach, the former Florida coach, Jim, I can't remember his name, but he knows how to get an offense going. Their running back is maybe one of the better duos, definitely the best duo in the MAC, one of the better ones in the country, where Lou Nichols ran for 508 yards and 4 touchdowns in only those 6 games. And Kobe Lewis, in those 6 games, ran for 468 and 6 touchdowns. And 2 years ago, he ran for 1,000 yards. So you got a 1,000-yard rusher and a 500-yard rusher back. That's a really, really good combination. Defensive end Troy Houston, in only those 6 games, had 5.5 sacks. You're facing Missouri, who Connor Bazelak had a really good freshman season, completing 67.3% of his passes for 2,366 yards. Linebacker John Jeffco had 6 sacks defensively there. Like I said, I think Central Michigan could put up some points. This could be a high-scoring game, but I think Missouri will end up taking the win. All right, UMass and Pitt. UMass was terrible. They only played 4 games, 0-4. The only thing I have down is Colorado transfer Tyler Little is going to go there and start quarterback. You have Pitt, 6-5. They were 37th in scoring defense, 20th in total. Kenny Pickett, he's not a very good quarterback in my opinion, but he's solid enough, and he's been there for the last 4 years. 2,408 yards, 13 touchdowns, 9 picks, plus 8 rushing. Wide receiver Jordan Addison led all freshman receivers with 60 catches for 666 yards and 4 touchdowns. They had 111 tackles for loss, which led the nation there. This shouldn't be close. Pitt is not a very high-scoring team, but UMass is pretty terrible, so Pitt should have no trouble with them. All right, Montana State ended up playing Wyoming. Wyoming coming off a 2-4 year, but their 4 losses were by a total of 22 total points. They should be able to bounce back there and get to a bowl game. They were 24th in scoring defense, have a good running back in Xavier Valladay, who ran for 550 yards and 4 touchdowns in only those 6 games. They shouldn't have much trouble with Montana State. Northern Iowa and Iowa State. Iowa State Cyclones, they are a favorite to maybe win the Big 12, maybe sneak into the college football playoff. They have Heisman candidates all across their entire team, really. They should have a lot of hardware for their players by the end of the year. Brock Purdy, 2,750 yards, 19 touchdowns, 9 picks, plus 382 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. Running back Breece Hall led the nation with 1,572 yards and 21 rushing touchdowns. Wide receiver Xavier Hutchinson, 64 catches, 771 yards, 4 touchdowns. Tight end Tyler Cole, one of the best in the country, 44 catches, 591 yards, 7 touchdowns. Linebacker Mike Rose, even 96 tackles and 5 interceptions. Him and defensive end Will McDonald, the fourth, led the nation with 10.5 sacks. All of those guys, if not Heisman candidates, they should win offensive and defensive awards all nationally and in the Big 12. They should be able to blow up Northern Iowa with no trouble at all. All right, Louisiana, Raging Cajuns, and Texas Longhorns. This is a really big game because Louisiana, they are 11-1. 2 years they were, I think they won 10 games. They're actually coming in ranked 23rd in the country. Texas is only 21st. The Louisiana Raging Cajuns have 20 returning starters. They have Levi Lewis at quarterback, one of the better ones in the country. 2,274 yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 picks, plus 335 and 5 rushing touchdowns. Whereas Texas, coming off a 7-3 season, but they fired their coach, Tom Herman. Steve Sarkisian comes in and mastermind on offense. They were 7th in scoring offense, but they are starting over at quarterback. That being said, their quarterback, Casey Thompson, who's coming in, he was the backup. He came in a bowl game and Ellinger was hurt, and all he did was, in that bowl game, all he did was go 8 of 10 for 170 yards and 4 touchdowns. Seems like they might have, if they go with him, they have a good quarterback. And Bijan Robinson at running back, 703 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, and most of that were the last like 3 or 4 games. He came on late. He could be a Doak Walker candidate. I'm going to put Texas on high upset alert. That being said, I actually really like Steve Sarkisian as their head coach, so I think Texas will be able to get a victory out of here, but that is a huge game to keep your eyes on that one. At least check back in the score. All right, San Jose State and USC, another big upset alert. USC coming in ranked 15th. San Jose State was 7-1 last year. They actually played a game already where they beat Southern Utah 45-14. Nick Starkel, 394 passing yards, 4 touchdowns and a pick, 543 total yards. They did have 11 penalties, and against a high-flying USC team, you do not want many penalties. This could be high scoring though, because USC last year was 5-1. They had a number 11 pass offense nationally. Keaton Slovis, Heisman candidate in my opinion, 1,921, 17 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions. Wide receiver Jake London, 33 catches, 502 yards, and 3 touchdowns, all in only 6 games. I think they should have a phenomenal season. Like I said, this will be high scoring, but I think USC will get the victory in the end. Our Campbell playing Liberty. Liberty was 10-1 last year, one of the best teams in the country. Even though they're an independent team, possibly could make into a bowl, like a group of 5 bowl game. 20 returning starters, 16th in scoring offense, 22nd in scoring defense. Malik Willis was amazing as a dual threat player. 2,260 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, only 6 picks, and ran for 944 yards and 14 touchdowns. And linebacker Darrell Johnson at 8 sacks. Campbell doesn't have a chance. Liberty will roll. And Malik Willis is dark horse Heisman candidate. They won't get a lot of love, but he's going to put up astronomical numbers, and you'll hear about him in the NFL. All right, then you got Gardner Webb against Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern had a good year last year, 8-5, 5th in rushing offense, 23rd in scoring defense. Their quarterback, Shea Werts, did transfer. They run a triple option. Justin Tomlin came in and he won a few games, so they should be okay at quarterback. Running back, J.D. King ran for 625 and 5 touchdowns. And cornerback, Derek King, one of the best in the country, tied for the national lead with 6 interceptions. Georgia Southern should be able to win that one. All right, you got Akron against Auburn. Akron was 1-5. They have 2 quarterbacks coming in. Zach Gibson passed for 784, 4 touchdowns, 5 picks. Kato Nelson was the starter for the past 3 or 4 years before that. Got hurt early on. Running back Tion Dollar, though, in only those 6 games, ran for 666 yards and 6 touchdowns. He could very well get 1,000. Auburn, they're starting over. They have a new head coach, Brian Harsin, who had great success at Boise State, was like 69-19 or something there. Bo Nix, back at quarterback, 2,415 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 picks, plus 388 and 7 touchdowns. Running back Tank Bigsby, one of the best in the SEC, with 834 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. And linebackers Jacoby McClain had 113 tackles there. Auburn shouldn't have too much trouble with Akron in this one and should get a nice first Auburn victory for Brian Harsin. All right, Eastern Illinois taking on South Carolina. Not all to say. South Carolina wasn't very good. They were 2-8 last year, but they do have one of the best running backs in the SEC in Kevin Harris, who ran for 1,138 yards and 15 touchdowns. They shouldn't have much trouble with Eastern Illinois. They should be able to get off to a 1-0 start. All right, you got Monmouth and Middle Tennessee State. Middle Tennessee State is 3-6. Asher O'Hara, their quarterback, transferred out, but they did get North Carolina State Bailey Hockman to come in. In split time last year, he did pass for 2,088 yards, 13 touchdowns, 11 picks. You should be able to pick up the Middle Tennessee State offense pretty decently, and at least well enough to bring them to a victory against Monmouth. All right, Syracuse and Ohio, kind of a decent game. Syracuse in the ACC was pretty bad last year, 1-10. They do have 19 returning starters. Tommy DeVito returns at quarterback, 593 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Wide receiver Taj Harris, 58 catches, 733, and 5 touchdowns there. Whereas Ohio only played 3 games in the MAC, but they will be a MAC contender. 2-1. They were 24th in scoring offense and 7th in total defense in those 3 games. Curtis Rourke passed for 386 and 3 touchdowns. Running back DeMontre Tuggle in only those 3 games ran for 403 yards and 6 touchdowns, so he could be on his way to 1,000 yards. Syracuse, if they can't get their stuff going, Ohio has the potential to upset them. The line is on Syracuse by only 1.5. It's in Ohio. I think Syracuse is on big upset alert, but I'll still go Syracuse for this slight edge there. All right, Oregon State and Purdue. This should be a high-flying shootout. Oregon State was 2-5 last year. They got different quarterbacks coming back, but they were one of the better passing teams at least in the Pac-12. And then Purdue 2-4, 16th nationally in passing offense. They had 2 quarterbacks coming back that can throw it all over the place. Jack Plummer, 938 passing, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks. Aidan O'Connell, 916 passing, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks. Wide receiver David Bell, 53 catches, 625 yards, 8 touchdowns in only those 6 games. This will be a fun game to watch. Oregon State does have to go to Purdue. I think even though both teams kind of have a 2 quarterback situation going on there, I think it lends itself a little more to Purdue at this moment. So I'm going to say Purdue gets the win, but the ball will be, the over-under is 68.5 points, which means it's going to be high scoring, a lot of passes, fun watching game. Another possibly high scoring game as well, the next one, Texas Tech in Houston. Texas Tech was 4-6. They had the number 33 passing offense in the country. They got Oregon transfer Tyler Shue, who at Oregon last year passed for 1559, 13 touchdowns, 6 picks, and ran for 271 and 2 touchdowns. They have wide receiver Eric Ezekanmo with 46 catches, 748 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Texas Tech always knows how to get a passing game going. Houston normally does. They have Dana Holgerson. They can get a passing game going pretty decently. They were 3-5. Clayton Tune, 2,048 yards, 15 touchdowns, 10 picks, plus 253 and 5 rushing touchdowns. Again, this should be a fun, high-scoring game to watch. A lot of offense. But I do think Texas Tech will be a little bit too much for Houston in this game. All right, you got Missouri State and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was 8-3 last year. Spencer Sanders, decent quarterback, 2,007 yards, 14 touchdowns, 8 picks, plus 269 and 2 touchdowns. He fits that offense perfectly for Mike Gundy and should be able to do well this year. If he cannot fumble, just stop basically fumbling, turn over the ball. He could have an awesome year. They should be able to beat Missouri State with not much trouble. All right, you got Baylor coming back 2-7. They were 48th in total defense last year. Only 9 returning starters. Really wasn't anything to say about them. Texas State, even though they were 2-10, they had 2 pretty decent quarterbacks. They passed it around a lot. Brady McBride, 1,925 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 picks. And Tyler Vitt, 933, 9 touchdowns, and 6 picks. Running back Calvin Hill, 536 rushing and 5 touchdowns, and had 24 catches. Brock Sturgis ran for 532 and 5 touchdowns. Wide receiver Marcel Barbie, 48 catches, 584 yards, and had 10 receiving touchdowns, one of the better ones in the nation. Possibly high-scoring game. Maybe Texas State can get out with a bit of an upset, but I think Baylor... it's just a little bit too talented overall. Even though they're starting over basically everywhere at quarterback, they're losing their running backs, their receivers, but they should still be able to win that one. All right, Nichols in Memphis. Memphis, a really good American team, 8-3 last year. They were 22nd total offense in the nation. They have Arizona transfer Grant Gunnell. I think he fits this offense perfectly. Wide receiver Calvin Austin, one of the better receivers in the group of 5, 63 catches, 1,053 yards, 11 touchdowns, and had 1 punt return for a touchdown. last season alone. They shouldn't have much trouble with Nichols. All right, Abilene Christian and SMU. Again, SMU, high-flying passing offense. They were 7-3. They were 15th in scoring offense. They are losing their quarterback in Shane Buechele, but whoever they put in should have a really good year. Ulysses Bentley ran for 913 and 11 touchdowns. He should get 1,000. Wide receiver Rashee Rice, 48 catches, 683 yards, and 5 touchdowns. They should be able to roll over Abilene Christian. And Norfolk playing Toledo. Toledo was 4-2. They had 21 returning starters, 21st in scoring offense last year, 36th in scoring defense. Carter Bradley comes back. Their quarterback, he's gone, but Carter Bradley had enough time playing 849, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks. They normally have a really strong offense. So no matter who's at quarterback, we'll put up big numbers. Bryant Koback ran for 522 and 4 touchdowns in all of the 6 games. If I remember right, he ran for 1,000 yards a couple of years ago. And wide receiver Isaiah Winstead, 25 catches, 429 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They should have no trouble with Norfolk. Then you got Central Arkansas and Arkansas State. Arkansas State is always one of the best passing teams in the country. They were number 2 passing last year. And they went back and forth literally with Lane Hatcher and Logan Bonner. Logan Bonner transferred to Utah State. Lane Hatcher, he's coming back. And split time did still pass for 2,058 yards, 19 touchdowns to 2 picks. With wide receiver Dahu Greenback, 32 catches, 542 yards, and 5 touchdowns. They should have one of the best passing offenses in the country. Look for Lane Hatcher put up amazing numbers all season long, and should be able to win this one pretty easily. All right, then you got Southern and Troy. Troy finished 5-6. They could have gone to a bowl, but their last game was canceled. They have 20 returning starters. They were 4th in total defense last year, 21st in passing offense. Gunnar Watson, 2,141 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, so only 7 picks. Wide receiver Kalen Geiger, 64 catches, 750 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And linebacker Halton Marshall, one of the top linebackers in the country, statistically speaking. He had 113 tackles there. I expect Troy to vie for a bowl game this year, maybe possibly be one of the teams in the Sun Belt. There's a lot of great teams in the Sun Belt going for it, but Troy should at least win this game. So those are my previews for the 3:30 Saturday games. Check out all my other videos as well. Peace.